A pleasant afternoon to you all. Today is an extremely special day. Not only are we celebrating the great victory won by our ancestors over 170 years ago, we are also celebrating this auspicious occasion of having Mr. David Granger visit Sandvoort for the first time as president of this their country. Mr. President, Sandvoort has managed to create for itself a rich history and a brilliant legacy, of which you will hear much more in a moment. But before we get down to the business, let us take this wonderful opportunity to welcome you all to Plantation Sandvoort. The people of Sandvoort village are indeed very blessed and privileged to have you in our midst today, sir. We are a very dedicated people towards the cause of development and unity. And we stand beside you firmly in your quest to uphold and protect our very rich heritage. We have planned a number of activities to commemorate this wonderful status for which our forefathers fought and died. Today's activities are just the tip of the iceberg. Other activities include a folk night and campfire, spelling bee, and the grand extravaganza finale on Sunday the 9th. We trust that you will all enjoy our presentation.
With humble hearts and heads bowed down, in a thanks for each new day of dawn, we kneel before thy altar, Lord, the children of thy soul. Great is the task that thou hast given, thy will to show thy truth. but not in vain. We'll strive to build a new Guyana, great and free, a land of glory and of hope, a land of love and unity. Thank you.
After slavery was abolished, plantation Sandvoort was owned by Mr. Edward John London. This portion of Sandvoort was bought by 9 slaves. There were 36 shareholders, including the 9 negotiators, who transacted the sale. And they leave the land to their heirs. Now the tribes at that time were Uku, Kwashi, Madengo, Congo, and Ashanti. The enslaved, the ex-slaves, now landowners, work cooperatively, digging trenches, canal, building coal-cars, home, and managing the village. They used to blow a shell and ring a bell to call villagers when requested for work or meeting. They were bush doctors too, and village midwives. The village was divided into 3 areas: English Quarter, Dutch Quarter, and Congo Town, and this is Dutch Quarter. There were competition where there were queens, English Quarter, Dutch Quarter, and Congo Town queens. And 1st of August there will be drumming and dancing, and there will be competition. And then the residents will give animals, and they will slaughter the animals, they will cook the food in the schoolyard, and everybody will come and partake of it, and there will be whole week celebration. The elected elders manage the village, and they manage the village. In June 1955, the Sandvoort Society was formed, number 550.
the chairman, secretary, treasurer, and 6 committee members serve. The present chairman is Mr. Clinton Forsyth. Religion was Christian, but we had 3 churches in the 1960s. Orange Chapel, Congregation, St. Ambrose Anglican, the Moravian Church, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Services were arranged that members of all the churches were able to attend the other services. The school. After John Ray went, there wasn't any other school in Sandvoort, unless the children had to go to Amsterdam. So the St. Ambrose Anglican Church, they built a school, the school we have now, that is now known as Sandvoort Primary School, which catered for the children from Anna Clementina to Plantation to Cabo. You know, Sandvoort is famous for a whole lot of things. And one of the things Sandvoort is famous for is bush rum. If you want the best bush rum, you come to Sandvoort. And so, after the villagers used to buy the bush rum, when they buy the bush rum and they're in the bush, the police used to come. When police used to come, the Orange Chapel Church was right next door. They will go and ring the Orange Chapel bell, the Anglican bell, and they ring the bell. Now, where you are, you have to remove from where you are and catch your farm, your weeding. Good. So, after time, the police realize, or they blow the horn or shoot a gun according to the direction. Now, the police realize that they can't catch anybody because the villagers are alerted in. So they came by the churches and sat under the bell so the people could not ring the bell. But the people had other strategies. The people had other strategies. Even when Pasai was boiling his bush rum and a guy came, the village had a whole lot of unity. And you will understand with this story. And he bought the bush rum, and the guy came and he said he wanted a Jimmy John and a Winchester and a bush rum. And he went away. He went to the water board and he rang up and he called the police. But a guy heard him there and he rode with his bicycle to alert the people in Sandvoort. Then they said, all right, we're going to show him something. So everybody put away all the rum they had in the front trench and the back trench, in the cube and all of that. And so they wait for the guy to come back. When he came back, they collected the man, give him a shot of rum. He said, man, take a drink. Take a drink. 1 drink, 2 drink. He said, we get a story for that. So you want to bring police for lock me up? Well, take this. He take off his broad belt and lock. Next body in the village come, box. Next one come, box. Next one come, box. When they give him so much that she comes back out, throw him in the trench. Revive. Bring him out back. Box. Let's tell you dead, you will never come back. Box. Now the average time the police come. So everybody, nobody light the lamp. All the houses were dark. And people were in the yard, but the police didn't know. They were keeping watch. But the people made sure they keep the children out of the light. Because you know children was always tell the truth. So when the police came, they saw the man there. The man who lived there, they took him with the boat over country and they put him over there. Now the police come, they splash in the light, they can't find anybody. So they went into the church nearby there and they saw my grandfather, Papa George, sitting inside. So they asked him, what you doing there? He said, I'm the deacon of the church. Not knowing he just run away after giving me lash. And so the police took him to the station. Now Reverend Nicholas was the pastor for the church. And so the people of the community went to Reverend Nicholas and said, Pastor, you're looking after the church and they'll lock you up. Reverend Nichols went to the station. He said, if the man is doing God, what you cannot lock him up. And so they lose him. And so when he came home, there was a jolly MC dancing and singing out in the village because nobody got jailed. Now, Sandvoort was famous for a bamboo house by Mr. Austin. And you know we had our own musician. We had Mr. Roland Adams, and we still have Mr. Torrance Sinclair, and we had Mr. Forsyth too. He used to play some good music, especially Moonlight Night. Now the elderly, we need the elderly musician to teach the young people the music and the drumming, and they always used to have a lot of confidence, yamapele, quick, susu. Especially Moonlight Nights. We, the inhabitants of Sandvoort, intend to preserve our village, and we ask you to help us too.
I humbly stand here today before you on your Emancipation Day. From the time I set eyes, I get emotional. From the time I set eyes on the cane field as I was entering this village, and I gradually came around the corner to the burial grounds and set my sight on the village itself, I felt right at home instantly. A welcome fit for royalty was given to me, and I have always felt safe and watched over in this community. I have just completed my first year as a teacher providing individual literacy instruction to Sandvoort and Le Havre primary children, grades 1 through 6. Over the course of the year, I have been proud of the accomplishments that I have seen. Of course, there's always room for improvement, right? I will do my best to raise the literacy level of each Sandvoort primary child before I leave in July 2016. Le Havre Primary has just been introduced to their new Peace Corps volunteer, Ms. Frances DeFabio, who I'm sure you recognize sitting amongst you. In an ideal world, I'd see 100% read at grade level or above. This brings me to an intersection where I meet family members. Many persons attending today are descendants of the first owners, are former slaves of Sandvoort. You have so much to be proud of. Now is not the time for complacency. Now is the time for parents and caregivers, department heads, teachers, and volunteers to link arm in arm.
Beloved leader of this country, address you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for Brigadier David Arthur.
When I saw the cultural presentations, I said to myself, if we not been coming, I've been no. It's not for got talent. My only regret is that I didn't come earlier. But thank you for your invitation, and it's good to be here. I look forward to coming again. Sandvoort, today we celebrate one of the most important days in the history of this country, Emancipation Day. Why? Not because it's a day of African emancipation, but it's because it's the birthday of the nation. If it was not for Emancipation Day, the Portuguese would not have come. If it were not for Emancipation Day, the Indians would not have come, the Chinese would not have come. This was the day, on the 1st of August 1838, that all of the nations came together because they felt that once the Africans were freed, they would walk off the plantations and sugar production would collapse. No such thing happened. In fact, the Africans who were freed on the 1st of August 1838 transformed a string of plantations into human settlements. Before 1st of August 1838, these villages didn't exist. It was just sugar plantations, cotton plantations, coffee plantations. But a miracle occurred on the 1st of August 1838. And a miracle occurred in a setting that was most unlikely. There was no other situation in human history as what occurred in the Western Hemisphere between 1492 and 1838. Millions of people were uprooted from Africa and brought to labor on the plantations in Brazil, in Guyana, in Barbados, and Trinidad, and Jamaica, and Haiti, in America, in Colombia. Just look at the picture of the New World, and you can see that it was contaminated with the greatest crime against humanity, the forced migration of millions of people, mainly from West Africa. People who had no rights, people who could not marry, people who could not appear before the courts, people who were treated like two-legged animals, domestic animals. People were made to live not in lodges, but in hovels. People who could be punished, as you heard. Pregnant women would be beaten. People who were executed. It's the worst crime that was ever committed. Mass genocide occurred in this new world. But on the 1st of August 1838, people who had come out of that system came out with dignity, came out demanding liberty, and came out committed to creating a land of prosperity. They came out of a system of adversity. But what did they do? They built a new nation. They did not take revenge on the slave masters. They did not run in the bush and lie down depressed and refusing to work because they were tired or fed up. They had hope. They had a vision. Even though they didn't go to school, they didn't go to university. Where did this vision come from? Where did this hope come from? It was like a miracle. What did they do? They took their time. They saved their money. A few chickens that they would mine and sell one another. A few roots of cassava and yam. A few bunch of plantain. They hoarded that money. And they were able to accumulate enough money to buy 100 villages from the white planters. Wasn't that a miracle? And these villages are the villages that we have inherited today. The Sandvoorts and the Bagotville's and the Friendships and Buxtons and Queenstowns. And the Kilnonans. We inherited those villages. And those villages removed us from the realm of hopelessness to this new nation that we call Guyana. Let me just speak a little bit about that miracle. Because we need a rebirth. We need a new covenant. We need a new miracle in Guyana today. Our foreparents coming out of enslavement for over 200 years had a clear idea of what they wanted in life. They saved their money. They didn't squander their money on bush rum. At least in villages other than Sandvoort. But they saved their money and they bought plantations. And what did they do with the plantations? They built a house. Not a real house, but what you can call a metaphorical house. On 4 pillars. The first pillar. Just imagine a house with 4 pillars, right? Because Sandvoort is flood steady, you have to have pillars. You can't live flat on the ground. The first pillar was the home. They built home so that they can live with their wives and their children. That was their first desire, that they did not want to live on the plantations, in the hovels. They had dignity, they had self-esteem. And they could not bring up their families, they could not bring up their children in the places where they were put to live. They didn't live in lodges, you know. They lived in huts that they constructed themselves. Don't worry, them pictures with lodges, that is later on the immigration. These people lived in little huts with thatched roof and mud walls on the ground. If they had fowls, the fowls inside there with them. If they had pig, the pig inside there with them. It wasn't a happy existence. There was nothing attractive or beautiful about enslavement. And they wanted to get away from the stench. They wanted to get away from the dictatorship of the planters. And they saved their money. And they bought plantations, divided up those plantations. Illiterate people, people who can't read and write, had the good sense to divide up those plantations, to build homes, so that their wives and children could grow up in a decent environment, in privacy. So those homes were the first pillars of this new Guyana. The second pillar was the church. They built their own churches to worship God. They didn't apply for any grants from overseas. They built churches with their hands because they were prevented from worshiping God under slavery. And God played a central role in their lives. Religion was central to their lives. And they built their own churches with their own hands to worship their God. That was the second pillar. The third pillar on which this house, this Freedom House was built. Hey, not Freedom House, House of Freedom. You know what I mean? House of Freedom. The third pillar on which this House of Freedom was built was the school. They realized that the white man was not superior to them, but he had learning. He could read, write, count, and spell. They saw newspapers, they saw books, and they wanted their children to be educated. And they took some of their young children out of the field and let them go to school. Schools that they built. One or two of them had become lay readers or deacons, and they were able to teach the children to read. And gradually, we developed an educated class. We developed teachers and priests, bookkeepers. So the schools were the third pillars. And if you go into these old African villages, schools still proliferate, churches still proliferate. You throw a brick in the air, it will land on a school or a church. Or a bushram still, depending on the village. And the fourth pillar on which these villages were built was the farm or the workplace. Many people think that today you don't like farming, you don't like agriculture, you want office job. Well, how did the people feed themselves from 1838? You think they went to Niger supermarket? They went to the city hall? They had to feed themselves. Whatever they ate is whatever they grew. They had to grow their own food. And everybody knows that they fed themselves. They didn't die off. Everybody knows, even when Blackbush Polo was being established, that they went to the old African villages, the Leeds and Kildonan and Manchester, to get planting materials. And I must come to Sandvoort for the other thing too. But they knew that they had to feed themselves. They were not lazy people. They were resourceful people. They had to work. Many of them continued to work on the plantations. All of them took to farming. A chicken here, a pig there, a few roots of cassava, a bunch of planting. But the house that they built, we have inherited today. Look around this village, Sandvoort. Read your history. Ask yourselves, if the 200 of you could come together and buy this village from scratch, the big villages, Queenstown, Essequibo, Bagotville, Pleasance, Buxton, Friendship, Victoria. Ask yourself, if today you all could have bought those villages to set up human settlements. Every day you should thank your foreparents for what they did after emancipation. Every day of your life. Sister, thank God. Thank God my grandmother and my grandfather had little common sense. They're not going to university, but they had common sense. So my brothers and sisters, when the Portuguese came in the 1830s and 1840s, they met human beings living in human settlements. When the Indians came, when the immigration was ended, they were able to move off the plantations. And they were welcomed in the African villages. The Chinese came, and they were welcomed in African villages. That is when we became a nation. We didn't fight the other ethnic groups down. We created a nation 177 years ago. We had the vision and foresight to share these communities with waves and waves of new migrants. That is why 1st of August is so important, not only to the Africans, but also to the East Indians, Chinese, Portuguese, Amerindian people, and of course the beautiful mixed people who will be produced as a result of the fusion of these different races. That is what happened. That is historical fact. That is the truth. And that is my message to you today. My message is that we need a second emancipation. The same spirit that inspired our forebears 177 years ago. We need to recapture that spirit. We need to be thrifty and save money. Acquire capital, accumulate capital, so that we can embark on enterprise. So let us go back to those 4 pillars, my brothers and sisters. The first lesson of emancipation is your family. Look after that family, look after that household. You hear me, Mr. Sweetman? I hear you. Can you hear me, Mr. Sweetman? Family first. Family first. Look after your wife, look after your children. Make sure you give them the best. That is what our grandparents gave us. They gave us the best. So we knew who mommy was, we knew who daddy was, we knew who our home was. We didn't have to sleep on the street. You ever hear about street children 80 and 90 years ago? As see by now, she's from West Kanji or East Kanji. East Kanji now. We never had street children. People could walk out of this village 10 o'clock in the morning and nobody was going to the house. Children were in school because at the end of the day, they knew they lived in something named a village. They knew they belonged to a family named David. And they knew that if they were skulking, if they were delinquent, some elder person would see them. Why aren't you at school? Come here. Twat, twat. I'm not saying that corporal punishment is good, but what I'm saying is that we looked after one another in the village because we're one family. We looked after each other. We knew where everybody was living, whether the house was rich or poor. Every person had a home, had a roof over his head or her head to sleep at night. We need to recapture our love of God. We need to start going back to church. Some people ain't fear God, you know. If they don't fear God, they fear schoolmaster, they're not fear policeman, they're not fear nobody. REO, they're not afraid of nobody. Because they don't have that respect which we learn from our religion. And let me pay respect to the Congregational Church. Because of all of the churches, they did most to educate and liberate the African population in the days after enslavement. You all have a congregation church here? Well, that is a precious asset. But get your children back in church from tomorrow, and next week from tomorrow. Let them understand that human society lives by certain rules. We didn't make ourselves. We can't invent rules as we go along. Without those rules, we slip into crime. Without those rules, we feel we could thief here or thief there, kill here or kill there. I've never seen such lawlessness in my life. Man go home, food cold, he just knock his wife with some martyr stick. He might go come back and he cut your hand off. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Where did it come from? I plead with you, parents, get your children back into church. Let them learn to live in the love of the Lord. Let them learn that there is a force which is more powerful than self-interest. The third thing is school. Well, you heard the volunteers speaking about education. We've only reached where we are because of education. And every year in this country, over 6,000 of our children drop out of primary and secondary school. You meet young people, they wear an ear stud, they got tattoo. They can't even spell stud. They can't spell tattoo. One set of gold teeth. And they can't read, write, count, or spell. Are you laughing? But it's not a joke. 40, 50 years ago, it's hard to find anybody who couldn't write properly. But now, enough. Now people are just dropping out of school. People are going to university sometimes and can't get a job. I don't know them to do badly or what, but we need to ensure that every child has a place in school. And what I ask you is what I've asked other villages today and in the past. That 1st of August should be regarded as New Year's Day. 364 days from now, you must give account for how you spent the past year. Make yourself a resolution, New Year's resolution. Over the next year, every single child in Sandvoort will go to school. I don't want to hear about anybody skulking, anybody delinquent. If you're sick, go to the hospital. If you're not sick, go to school. But the community must take responsibility for its children. Each one of us must be our sister's keeper, our brother's keeper. If there is one child who cannot go to school because he has no transport, or he has nothing to eat in the morning, give that child something to eat. Help that child with transport. If the child has no shoes to wear, give the child shoes. But let us take a vow right here in Sandvoort to make sure every child goes to school. I recently celebrated my birthday. You know I have birthdays. And you know I'm over 50. You know that? Yes. All right. Not much over 50, but just so. But what did my party give me for my birthday present? They gave me a school boat. Why? I was a Trafalgar on the west coast of East, and a little child complained about the cost of transport. Well, of course, he doesn't need a boat. But as a friendship on the Pomeroon, one parent spending $4,000 a week to send his daughter a week. You hear me right? $4,000 a week to send his daughter to Charity Secondary School. Go up to Bobby's River, the Kalkoni and Bini, and you see, you hear stories of how much parents have to pay to get their children to school. And I took a vow, ECIS, every child in school, and I will do my best over the next 5 years to make sure that every child can get to school. And on the 15th of July 2015, my party hearkened on to my call, my cry, and they gave me a school boat. I'll be going to the Pomeroon to present that school boat so children, 30 children, can go to school and get back home every day. And I want the same thing to happen right here in the country, in the Berbice River, in Mazaruni, in Pomeroon, in the Demerara River. I see children paddling to school. 30 minutes, 50 minutes, 90 minutes. By then they get there, they're tired. In the night, they go paddle back home. As soon as they can escape from paddling, they gone in the bush, hustle for 2 penny weight of gold. Because it's too much to bear just to go and get 5 hours of lessons. So I want to adopt that 4th pillar to make sure that in every village, every community, not only the government, but the community takes responsibility for getting all of its children into school. I will take the responsibility for building enough schools, but I want you to take the responsibility for getting children into schools. So here we have a house with 3 pillars, but there's one more pillar, the 4-letter word, work. W-O-R-K. You look at some people don't like it, that's a tower. Because they know you can't live in front without the back. And every village was able to sustain itself. I would like to give you a printout of what Guyana used to export in 1915. We used to export horses to Trinidad, you know. Fish, cocoa, rice, sugar, coffee, cotton. Guyana was a productive dynamo 100 years ago. It meant that these very villages were productive enterprises. Those of you who know the villages, particularly along the East Coast or West Coast, every Friday, a huge battle will be coming out with every imaginable fruit. Pumpkins, pears, guava, cassava plantain, yamedo, tashin. Food galore. You could never go into a village and not get food to eat. People are ashamed if you come to the house and you don't offer them something to eat. People prefer to lock up the house and say, don't come if they don't have food inside. But once you come in, you're getting food. And a little to take home. Carry this for the wife. We can go back to those days because every single thing that we need to produce can be produced in these farms. A lot of the backlands are abandoned. I know, I see them. Sometimes you go by the Bobby's Bridge there, people got one packet of planting chips or something. But let us move our economy forward. This is part of my emancipation message. You can get rich. You can free yourself. Just get a little sealing machine. Rather than buying 2-3 cell phones, rather than going to Brooklyn every fortnight, get a sealing machine and make some packets of planting chips. Sandvoort, best planting chips. Sandvoort, bush planting chips. How about that? But everything mommy used to make, guava jam, guava cheese, guava jelly, porn. You have school children, 100 school children going to school every day. Make school snacks. You can sell these school snacks. Get some businessmen to sell the school, buy the school snack and sell them to the children or give them to the children. But you have a ready market. Not only at the Bobby's Bridge, but get somebody that can the truck and take them down to the supermarkets in New Amsterdam and in Georgetown and in Rose Hall. This region got more tongues than any other region in the country. 3 tongues. And they're selling a lot of stuff that come from, I can't even say overseas. I can say over the river. But you are capable of achieving a high level of prosperity in your homes, in your cottages, in your villages. If you took control of the economic life of these communities and use the resources and the talents which you have at a commercial scale to make yourself rich and to make your communities prosperous. You have that power in your hands. Don't look to Granger for a job in some office, pushing people. There are no jobs like that anymore. The jobs are right here. You've got to make your living in these communities. You've got to sell something. That's how people get rich nowadays, by being traders, by being producers, by being vendors. As long as you're a consumer, you will always be the victim of high prices by the producers. Our foreparents did not have that peril. They were able to eat what they grew. And they were strong and they lived up to now. Whenever I hear there's a 100th birthday party, it's usually a woman. I don't know, the man can't make it to 100. And it's usually from the countryside. It's usually from the countryside. I don't know what they're in the water, but many of the people who meet 100 and beyond are women from rural areas, because they didn't grow up eating Kentucky Fried and sausage. They grew up eating plantain and cassava and fufu and soup. They never used to eat soup. They eat soup. Soup is something when you put a spoon, it mustn't fall down. If it falls down, it's broth. But we have this knowledge, we have this talent, we have this power, and today we celebrate our freedom. Madam Chairperson, I'm grateful for your invitation to be here. I apologize for not coming earlier. 24 hours ago I was in San Fernando, Trinidad. And the Trinidad government was opening a new campus at the University of the West Indies. $600 million TT dollars. That is the thrust, that is the attention, that is the contribution that they're making to education. The University of the West Indies now has 19,000 students in Trinidad alone. 19,000 people will be graduating with degrees and diplomas. We must not be left behind in this education revolution, my brothers and sisters. Today I'm here, I'm not making joke when I mention these 4 things. It's not joke when I mention the family, when I mention the church, when I mention education, and I mention the farm, our work. These are serious. I'm asking you, over the next year, to take a vow, to look back, if you will, to look back to see where your ancestors came from, why they acquired these villages at great expense. But more important, look forward to where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. And if you share that vision, let us give ourselves a new covenant, a new emancipation, to respect our families, our spouses, our children, to go back into our churches and our places of worship, to ensure that every child is in school, and to ensure that we provide ourselves with employment so that we could live prosperous lives and enjoy that good life that we promise. Madam Chair, it's good to be here with you again in Sandvoort. Thank you. May God bless this village, but may God give you that vision for this new emancipation, and can prosperity come to Sandvoort through strong families, love of God, good functioning schools, and a strong work ethic. Thank you. May God bless you.
It is said that the greatest things in life cannot be seen, but must be felt by the heart. Today, God belief has been proven incorrect. We have indeed seen and felt and experienced something extraordinary, an epitome of culture demonstrated by Sandvoort. Our heritage is still alive. It is fitting to first give thanks to God, in whom we live and move and have our being. Special thanks to you, Mr. President, and your team for making this occasion a memorable one. Our heartfelt gratitude is also extended to you, dear audience, for being a part of this program, and to everyone who contributed in one way or another towards the success of this program. We, the Sandvoort Heritage Committee, and by extension, the community of Sandvoort, wish to extend our greatest thanks. Your efforts are highly appreciated. Please be reminded that our activities continue daily, and our grand cultural extravaganza is on Sunday night. You cannot afford to miss it. See you then.